One of my favorite ways to work with my rice papers is to give them a distressed look, as I did with these two papers. It's subtle color, and I can either use them as is or come back in at a later date with some color of some kind. So it gives me a good start to where, like I said, I can add or tear them up for collage or whatever. So I'm going to show you how I do that. So I'm starting out with a clean piece of my rice paper, and my rice papers for this group have no names. We just numbered them from 1 to 5. This one is number 3, and it has writing and numbers and a couple elements. I really like working this paper. So to start with, I'll tell you what I'm going to be using. I have a water bottle, 2 colors of Tim Holtz Distress Spray Stain, old paper and antique linen, and some white paint, and I'm using Paper Artsy Fresco Finish Snowflake. And I'm going to put a little bit of the white paint onto my craft sheet, and I'm going to spray it with water. I want it diluted enough to where it's not going to obscure my elements on the paper. And before I do that, I'm going to give it, for some added texture, I'm just going to crumple it up so I'll get some really nice lines and make it look even older. Rice paper is a mulberry type paper in that it has little flecks of fibers running through it. And I like it as much as I like tissue paper. This one, the rice papers hold up to paint really well, or whatever you want to throw at it. Tissue papers can be a little bit fragile sometimes, but I use them both. So I'm also working on my gel press plate. This is a 9x11, and I'm going to see how this goes. I'm just curious. I'm not going to clean the plate. I'm just going to, this is all left over from a previous project. So we'll see what happens. So let's get started. So I'm going to take my diluted white paint, and I'm going to just randomly paint the white paint. It's actually called dry brushing. You just have a little bit of paint. You don't have a really soggy wet brush. It's just strokes of paint on here. So what will happen is the white paint will set in some of the valleys and the ridges of the crumpled paper. And I like to do the back as well. And I don't know if you can see it, but I have this wonderful distress paper already. These rice papers are made in Italy, and they have a wonderful texture to them. I just love them. I can use them both in my paper journals, but also in my fabric journals as well, because it will hold up well to stitching and sewing. So I'm going to let that dry. So this is dry, and now I'm going to use my Distress spray stains and add the old world parchment paper look that I'm going for. I rinsed out my brush, but there's still a little bit of white paint on it, which I like because it kind of gives the ink a creamy color, so that might show up as well. So I'm gonna, off of the paper, I'm going to spray the Distress spray. This is old paper, quite a bit. I want it very diluted because I don't want the paper completely dark with color because I want my elements to come through. So I'm just gonna lightly, and you can see where, hopefully you can see where there's little ridges of white. That's from the white paint in the crunching of the paper. So it's not much, but it just gives, like I said, a little bit of added texture. So I'm going to add a little more. This is antique linen. And I'm going to switch back and forth with these colors until I achieve the color that I like, keeping in mind that these will dry much lighter. And what's nice about these papers, they're very absorbent, so, and the color goes to the other side, or the back side of the paper. So again, this is the old paper. I like old paper because it's kind of got a green cast to it, and I love using green in all sorts of ways. And a little bit more antique linen, diluted. And then I'm going to let this dry and come back and work the paper some more. And when I say working the paper some more that's just my lingo for adding layers to the paper. The more layers you add, the more depth you get more texture, and I find it just looks visually the way I like it to be. So I'm going to let this dry and come back in a second. Now that that's dried, I'm going to add some more elements to my paper. And this time I'm going to work from the back. And how I'm going to do that is, again, work with the Distress stains. This is, again, the old paper. And I have one of my foam stamps that I have with Joggles. This one is Starflower, and the number is 57297. So I will show you how I like to use them in this way. So I'm just hanging onto my paper for a minute. I'm letting the stain to get saturated again with water, and I'm just going to pat the stamp with the mixture. And I have no idea what this is going to do. I might have to come back in with straight stain with no water, but let's see how it goes. So and we'll see. We'll pick a spot that is kind of white, and that's really not doing anything. It does add another layer of stain though, so maybe I will use this that way. Oh, good. So now I have, you can see where I have stamped the design on my paper. I don't know if you can see it, but it made a nice flower down here, and I'm going to repeat it up in the corner. Yes, I like that. And when that dries, it's just a hint of a flower, and that will be great. I like that so much. I'm just going to make another one. This one I'm just going to spray, I think, the stamp. And we'll see what happens. Again, I'm going to go from the back. This way I can see where the white spots are that are just the white paint and haven't had any design on them yet. See how dark it is on the back? Let's see what happens on the front. So it's a little obscured, but this one you can see. So I like having both the faint flowers and the more pronounced flowers. And not to waste my ink, I'm just going to add some water and just fill in a little bit more in the corners. So I'm not going to wait for this to dry because I'm going to be working in other areas, and it just speeds up the process for video. So now I'm going to add some other elements in a different medium. So I'm going to use some distressed speckled egg and again some snowflake. And I have no idea. This in itself I really like, but I'm going to go the extra step and put some more profound color on it. One to experiment, and then the other, I have this paper that I want, this paper I'm going to put on one of my journal covers. So we'll see what happens. So again, I like working off of my plate and off of the paper directly. That way, if I went straight to paper, if I flub up, you know, then you got to go about trying to correct that. If it's on the side here, you have a little bit more control. So I'm just going to, this is another of my stamps. This is Collage Flowers, one of my foam stamps with Joggles called Collage Flowers, number 57293. Okay, so I'm lightly, just gonna lightly, very lightly, I don't want this really heavy, and I might even offload it a little bit before I put it on the paper. And I'm just going to pick down in the corner. Again, I'll pick the corner, that way if I'm not liking this, you know, it's not over all of my paper. And this isn't too bad. It's giving me a little bit of color, so I'm going to repeat it up here, going a different direction. And a little bit off the page. Yeah, I'm really liking this, but I like it faintly. I don't like it with a ton of paint on it. And I like to go different directions with this stamp. Okay, this is awesome. So I've got the blue element, and I'm going to use another blue element. I'm going back to the Distress stain. And this time, I'm going to just spray it again. I wonder if I mixed it with the blue, what it would do. Well, let's see. So I'm going to use a jar lid that I had sitting on my desk here. And let's see. I like to highlight things with a circle. I love circles. I use them all the time. And so I don't know if, hopefully you'll be able to see this, but it's a real pretty blue around the 5. And let's add one more. Just gonna put it up in the corner here. So I'm really liking that. It just adds this little bit of blue, and I can even go in with the brush and just put a little bit of color in some other spots. And it's picking up, again, the wrinkles from when I crunched it, which I really like. So I'm really happy with this. So I'm going to let it dry, and then I'm going to put it on the cover of my journal that I have started. Be back in a minute. So this is dried, and before I show you how I'm going to add it to one of my journal covers, I wanted to show you the other papers in my line with Joggles. So this is a nature bird theme, and like I said, we numbered them. So the one we just made is number 3. This is number 1. Like I said, it's the bird nature theme. And this is a collage of flowers. This is number 2. And I love painting these individually, which in an upcoming video I'll show you how I did that. It's got writing and different things. Just a pretty collage that you could use full sheet or cut it up into pieces, like I said. That one you've seen. This is number 4, and I just love this paper. I will most likely use it as a full sheet, and I have some ideas to show you how I'd like to use this, and I think I'm going to make a collage for my workroom, my studio, so I can see it all the time. And then last but not least, the mandalas. This is darker than the rest, and there's a lot going on, but you can cut these out and paint them individually, or again, you can use it as one full sheet. So a lot of fun to be had with all of these. So getting back to this paper, I'm going to show you two of my journals that I have started. These are Dina Wakley media journals, and I believe they are 6x6, but don't quote me on that. I think that's what they are. I like them. They're hard covered, and this particular book I've decided to keep it black and white for the time being. And as I go through, it's just started. As I said, I've added some washi tape, and here I did a little flap using Joggles black tape, and then I cut a strip of one of my papers and used a sticky back adhesive and just made a strip similar to like a washi tape. And again, use some more washi tape. And this is a Joggles watercolor tag as well. And then I also am using this book to highlight my foam stamps and my stencils as well. So again, here are pieces from one of the papers, the butterfly. And then this one is the nature piece on these 2 papers, or pages, excuse me. In keeping it black and white, I may use it as a coloring book later on, I'm not sure, but I just wanted to give you an idea that you don't always have to paint them or ink them. You can use them just as they are. This book is another Dina, and this one I'm using pieces in it that I've added color to. This paper and these papers are using the same technique that I used today on this paper. Only there's not as much green in it. It's more of just tea dye, the tea dye color distress ink, spray stain. And these are some color pieces that I'm working on, and I'll show you that at a later date as well, how I did that. So now I'm going to cover it. So I have some gel medium. I'm using Crafter's Workshop matte gel medium and a brush, and I'm just going to put a layer of the gel medium on the cover. If you don't have gel medium, you could use Mod Podge or straight, maybe watered down craft glue. And depending on where you are in the country, your humidity level will determine. Oh, I got a piece of a brush in there. So I'm going to just add I'm in the Midwest, so I don't have too much trouble with dry conditions, but here we go. Now, center on here, how do I want this? I think I want most of the numbers on here. And I'm just going to give a little bit window of time to move this around. And that's even with the edge of the book. And I'm just going to go around, and I'm going to use the cover of the gel medium. My brayer is covered with black paint, so I can't use it right now. Use what you have. And do I want to fold this over, or do I just want to trim it? I think I like folding it over, and then I'll put another piece of something on the back at another time. I could use one of the other papers I showed you using this technique. I could do that as well. So I'm just going to fold that over. I'm going to let it dry, and then I'm going to trim this even with the book. And I'll be right back. So I finished putting the paper, adhering the paper with my gel medium onto the cover of my Dina Wakley journal. And I ended up, this was a happy surprise, that the remaining paper that I had added color to fit perfectly on the back. So I didn't waste any more of the paper. I used the whole thing on the cover, so that I like when that happens. So this is how it turned out. A couple things. Once I had the paper adhered with the gel medium, I came back and sealed it with some Mod Podge. I like to do this because it just gives a nice finish to my surface. I preferably would have liked to have some varnish, some matte or satin varnish, depending on if I want it matte or a little bit of a shine to it. But I didn't have it readily available, and I wanted to get this video done, so I just used Mod Podge, which is a sealer, glue, and finish. So I just wanted to let you know. And when you do varnish over paint, it makes whatever you varnished pop. It works on wood, but it also works on papers and gel print papers. So I really like that. And of course I can't leave this alone. I had dug out from my stash some of the Sparks, what is it called here? Acrylic paint, and it's by Finnabar, and it's called Unicorn Hair. unicorn's hair. And I love a nice sparkle, but I don't want to add too much. So I'm just going to put some of this on, and I think what I'll do first is put on some speckled egg paint again, and this time I'm just going to use one of my Crafter's Workshop stencils and just put a little bit on the front. Nothing huge, just a little bit more. And you just decide where you want it and then just stencil it on. So how does that look? It's okay. But I think what I'm going to do is use some of the unicorn hair paint, sparkly metallic, as well, just to give it a little more coolness. So let's see. That's okay. I could have gone either way with that, but for now, I'm just gonna put a little in the corner, and maybe this corner as well. And I am done. So thank you for watching. I hope you like my new rice papers with Joggles, and let me know what you think. Be nice though. This video, I'm rusty. I haven't made one in a while, so leave me good reviews. Thanks so much.